The Gutierrez-Uggan lawsuit is based on the allegation that none of the Guam Election Board members were legally valid members of the board. This allegation is based on a few different things. It is alleged that Joseph Mesa, Martha Ruth, and Robert Cruz all had their appointments expire prior to the general election. For example, they point to evidence that shows that Joseph Mesa was appointed on June 18th of 2007, with his term expiring on September 2nd, 2008. They allege Martha Ruth was nominated on October 27, 2008, with her term expiring on October 28, 2010, and that Robert Cruz was nominated on October 10, 2007, with his term expiring on October 9, 2009. They also allege that all GEC members require a duly passed resolution by their respective parties for their appointments to the board to be valid. Thus, they allege that John Taitano, Alice Tyron, John Terlahi, and Josh Tenorio were not appointed by a duly passed resolution from within their respective parties. This based on an alleged lack of documentation at the GEC indicating any duly passed resolution. Thus, the Gutierrez-Uggan team alleged that all 7 of the members of the GEC board lacked legally valid appointments. Because of this, they're asking the Supreme Court of Guam to cancel, invalidate, and annul the certificates of election and essentially decertify the election. Without certified results, the Calvo-Tenorio team cannot proceed with their inauguration, which is planned for January 3rd. However, the Calvo-Tenorio team and the GEC have filed their responses to these claims. Guam Election Commission attorneys Cesar Cabot and Roland Mantegnola state in their response that the evidence presented by the Gutierrez-Uggan team is incompetent and that their challenges to the authority of the GEC are meritless. The GEC attorney says that all of their board members were legally appointed and had the authority necessary to certify the election. They argue that a duly passed resolution by their respective parties is not needed for their appointment. They cite a couple of cases that they believe back up this argument. Then there is their argument for the board members whose appointments allegedly expired. They say the term of appointment for a GEC member should be counted from the day the member was sworn into office and not from the day of their appointment letter. Martha Ruth was sworn in on January 21st of 2009, which means her term should expire on January 21st of 2011. As for Joe Mesa and Robert Cruz, the GEC admits their terms may have technically expired, but they argue that they too would be allowed to operate as de facto members for as long as he or she continues to operate under the color of the law. They also argue that even if Mesa and Cruz are excluded, the remaining 4 who voted had appointments that weren't expired. These 4, namely Tyron, Tenorio, Terlahi, and Ruth, are the 4 the Gutierrez-Uggan team allege lack a duly passed resolution by their respective parties. The GEC argues that this duly passed resolution is a technicality that doesn't change the validity of their appointments. Thus, they argue that these 4 members alone were enough to certify the election. And finally, they argue that the alleged defects make no difference to the outcome of the election. This is something that Calvo-Tenorio attorney Mike Phillips has been arguing from the beginning of this lawsuit. In fact, this is something that Phillips brings up again in the response he filed today. Phillips's response coincides with much of what the GEC has responded with, that is, that the members of the GEC were operating as de facto members and that the petitioners have failed to provide any evidence that the Gutierrez-Uggan team should have been victorious in this election.